Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good people. Yeah, you know what it is. Hard worker, scrappy, unfiltered, and sometimes unhinged football content. Hard to explain, but you know it when you see it. Doing it daily our way. I don't know what you're talking about right now. Redraft and Dynasty Fantasy Football, we got you covered. You know their defense is ranked like 31st in the NFL? NFL draft prospects and rookies? Now you know you in the right place for that.
Absolutely.
All right, then stop saying it. Then we're done. And prop bets with my man Jay Rich.
Count that money, man.
Now wipe the crust out of your eyes, get you a cup of coffee. It's time to wake your ass up with Ray G. You honestly are making absolutely no sense and you sound silly as hell. Good morning, 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 good people. It is Wednesday, November the 2nd, 2022. Y'all decided to wake y'all asses up with Ray G. And for that, I appreciate y'all being here. Shout out to Prize Picks, sponsor the show. Use the promo code WAKEUP. Get in on all the prop bet action with myself, the DD community, and Jay Rich. But it was only right we start with Migos straightening this morning. Rest in peace. Take off. Crazy news that happened out of the hip-hop culture world yesterday. So just want to shout out. We rocked it with the Migos over here. I'm a big hip-hop and rap fan, so just thoughts and prayers to that whole family. Just crazy, crazy senseless violence, man. So rest in power. Take off. But it's good to see y'all in the building. Ricardo, main event. Jeff in the building. Joey, what's happening? L. Woods. Leo. Who else we got in the building? Jeff, Matt Brune in here. Shout out to Campus to Canton, man. Get sharper with Campus to Canton. Go over there and check out all the stuff that they do. Lindsay Mack, what's up, my girl? Lindsay Mack in the building. Jesse Garcia. What's happening? Matthew in the building. Goat Rings in the building. Dynasty Barry. Marlon, good to see y'all. Good to see y'all this morning. We got a lot to talk about. NFL trade deadline. Got a new little segment type deal that we're going to talk about today. But I got to get my boy Jay Rich in the building. Jay, how you doing this morning, brother?
I'm good, man. A lot to talk about with the deadline yesterday. A very active deadline. 20 players traded. What is this? Like, this is the baseball deadline, the NBA deadline heating up. It's good to see the NFL get in on the action because the NFL trade deadline for years has been basically non-existent. Now we're seeing fantasy relevant players get moved. Yeah. Some teams go, like, kind of going forward a little bit. I'm happy to see it, man. Didn't see Cam Akers get traded, though, which kind of sucks.
Didn't see Akers get traded. I did. He's what? What were we about to say about
he's
Akers?
the one that I think I wanted to see traded the most because he's like, I know people want to see Kareem Hunt get traded, Brandon Cooks get traded, but he literally has been a healthy scratch on his own roster for weeks. And it just sucks, man. Like, he's talented running back. I want to see him thrive. And he's just, now what do they do with him? They're talking about, they're not going to cut him.
They said they're going to bring him back.
Tough, man.
They said they're going to bring him back. They said they're going to bring him back. We'll see how that plays out. Jay, but I did see, you know, my wife and I, we went to school at Texas Southern University in Houston, Texas. So we're watching the World Series. We're fair weather baseball fans. But I will say, I told you, now that my son is into baseball, I've started to appreciate the game a little bit more. But we're watching the game last night, and it's just homer after homer for the Phillies. The Philadelphia Eagles, 7-0. The Philadelphia Phillies won 7-0 last night. Yeah. So I saw that tweet, and it's just like, seems like the stars are aligning for Philadelphia, the city of Philadelphia fans. So hopefully the Astros can get it done. They're down 2-1 in that one right now, so we'll see how that goes. But enough baseball talk. We'll get to all the baseball stuff another day on another show. Let's just get right into it. We don't need to bury the lead. Let's go straight facts and get right into the trades and talk about the fallout. Let's go.
The biggest news in the world of sports. Covered and brought to you by one man, Jordan Richards. This is Straight Facts, presented by Michelle Adoro.
Yeah, Michelle Adoro. We didn't talk about it at the beginning, but I've been up, Jay, since 4:40 this morning. So I've had two cups of coffee. So I just got water right now. I've been up since 4:40 this morning. Don't ask me why. I have no clue, but shout out to Michelle Adoro. Use the promo code WAKEUP. Get 15% off coffee. I mean, you can get some nice glasses. I just got a Michelle Adoro water right here. I don't know if they sell the water, but the glass is dope. So I just got some water today. But Jay, let's get into the news. What's the first kind of trade you want to talk about and talk about the fallout from this first trade?
So the first trade, I think it's probably the biggest one for fantasy purposes as far as I'm concerned. And it's the Buffalo Bills bringing in Nyheim Hines and getting rid of Zach Moss.
That's
Also,
the biggest one?
a condition. I think so. Yeah, I think so. I mean, you talk about teams that are trading for players. They're all really non-contenders, right? Like maybe you could say the Dolphins are contenders. Maybe you could say that the Jaguars are contenders. I probably wouldn't make that assumption. But I think the Buffalo Bills bringing in Nyheim Hines is notable, right? They tried to sign J.D. McKissic, unsuccessful. They tried to make it work with James Cook. Maybe it is working, maybe it isn't. I don't know. But I think the biggest thing here is that they're trying to take some work away from Devin Singletary, right? Has, I think, the 6th most pass block reps in the NFL right now. He's obviously toting the rock for them. He's catching the ball out of the backfield. James Cook is somewhat involved, but now that he's being brought in and they're bringing Nyheim Hines into Buffalo, what does that mean for that team and more importantly for that backfield going forward, right?
Man, I don't know. This one puzzled me because they kept saying Hines was going to get traded. He was going to get traded, which he did. But Buffalo in the offseason, they tried to get J.D. McKissic, right? That didn't work out. They spent a 2nd-round pick on James Cook, whose calling card out of Georgia was his pass catching ability. I don't see him run any pass routes. He doesn't do anything. He carries the ball 3 times a game, and he looks fine when they give him the ball. Like outside of his first game, his first carry where he fumbled and then got buried for like 4 weeks, every time he gets the ball, he looks fine to me. I mean, he doesn't look spectacular. He's not running through a bunch of tackles, but he looks fine to me. So them acquiring Nyheim Hines, I don't know. I'm confused. This backfield is confusing, and this is why, as good as Devin Singletary has been, and as admirable of a job as he's done, like you don't even want Singletary. He's going to give you his 8 to 12 carries a game, 50 to 60 yards, no touchdowns. You're hoping he catches the ball. I don't know. I don't know how they deploy him, but they traded for him for a reason. And I truly, this is one where I don't know. I don't know what to think about it, man. I honestly, it's not like he's traded to the Bills and now your wheels up Nyheim Hines, I'm going to throw him in the lineup. If anything, my big takeaway was make sure you have Deion Jackson rostered. You know, right now, Jonathan Taylor, his ankle is good. It's not good. He tweaked it. He didn't tweak it. He's efficient. He's not efficient. But I think what it shows is Indianapolis has confidence in Deion Jackson to be the number 2 behind Jonathan Taylor. And that's an important role. Every time Deion Jackson got to step up and play, he produced as a top 12 running back for us. So for me, that was my big takeaway, that the pathway is cleared for the RB2 in Indy and Deion Jackson. And we got to see Deion Jackson on the field a little bit with Nyheim Hines and Jonathan Taylor both active. So I don't really know. I don't really want to mess with the Bills backfield, man. If it ain't Josh Allen, if it's not Stephon Diggs or Gabe Davis and Dawson Knox, if you fade a tight end, I just don't want anything to do with him, man.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, right? Is that Singletary now kind of becomes a primary rusher, more likely exclusively, maybe not right away because Hines will have to be involved in the offense, but over time, he will probably take over that pass catching role and the pass blocking role where he's had a lot of success in the NFL. And I think the bigger part here as well is that they also had him in for these 2-minute offenses where they're running hurry up, and Hines can excel in that role as well. Okay. So you're taking that potentially away from Singletary. But like you mentioned, Deion Jackson really is the big winner here. And I think James Cook potentially could be buried even further down the roster if Hines does ultimately take his job. Because in some ways, Ray, I think that Hines is kind of the best running back fit on this team for the team. They can run quick, they can play hurry up, and Hines can kind of do all that. While Devin Singletary has been fine, I think that Hines does provide a slightly better skill set to do a bit of everything if they want to run hurry up. And you look at the Kansas City game, Devin Singletary was blocking on tons of plays because they needed extra blockers in the backfield. And so if Hines can do that and provide a little bit more out of the backfield, I think that's beneficial for them. They're looking obviously at the long term, not the short term of the regular season. They're looking for Super Bowl and how they get better. So I'm not entirely surprised they brought in the back. We've talked forever about how their backfield is fine, but not great. I think adding Hines does make it a little bit more deadly overall.
All right. Who else do we got? What else happened, man?
So do you want to get into your boy Trevor Lawrence? Because
you're already there. You're already there. What do you mean? Do I want to get into? It's not my boy Trevor. just get into it, man. Jesus, man. Just get into it.
The Jacksonville Jaguars traded for Calvin Ridley out of nowhere. I don't think anyone was expecting this at all.
No.
They got a 2023 conditional 5th round pick and a 2024 conditional 2nd round draft pick. And I believe that is the ceiling for those draft picks, right? So if everything goes right, whatever the conditions are, Ridley plays games, whatever the stipulations are, the max they can get is a 2023 5th and then a 2024 2nd, which I'm assuming is more the conditional part of this part. But what does that mean for Ridley? And what does that mean for Christian Kirk? And what does that mean for Trevor Lawrence? Trevor Lawrence is a quarterback who has been mid at best.
He's been mid
so far, right? At best,
mid.
I think we can say. What you're getting a top, 5 route runner in the league in Calvin Ridley, maybe a top 15 receiver in the league in Calvin Ridley when fully healthy. Yes, it's probably not going to happen right away, but he's not suffering from injury. He's not returning from anything but a gambling addiction, which... an addiction, I probably wouldn't call it that. I have no problem placing parlays. But Ray, what
parlays
does this
are the
mean
worst bets to
for all
place?
these guys?
But go ahead. They're the single worst bets to place. But my immediate thought is, I do stuff. I'm a contributor with the Draft Network, and every mock, they're penciling in a wide receiver to Jacksonville. Every mock, right? Whether that's Jordan Addison, Kayshon Boutte. I think what Jacksonville said is we're good next year at the wide receiver position. This frees them up to use their top 15 pick on another skill position or another position, period. O-line, defensive help. I don't know what they want, right? But I think this takes them out of the market for a running back high in round 1. What does this mean for Trevor Lawrence? I'll say this, man. I don't know what Ridley has. I don't know what Ridley's, like you said, he's not coming back from an injury. So it's not even a matter of what he has left in the tank. I think he's going to be fine. From a playing football standpoint, I think he's going to be fine. I don't think there's any decline. I don't think Ridley's washed. He wasn't washed the last time we saw him on the field. I don't know. I mean, T-Law is mid. He's a very, so far to this point in his career, the thing that's keeping him elevated and propelled being like this top prospect is what he was at Clemson and the perception that he was as the number 1 overall pick. If this were any other quarterback, we'd be like, man, this dude, I don't know, right? But it's Trevor Lawrence. It's the golden boy. But what I appreciate about Jacksonville is they're actually trying to surround him with competent weapons. They're actually trying to, they were like, all right, we'll get James Robinson out of here. We'll let ETN be the guy. We'll go get you a Christian Kirk. We'll go trade for a Calvin Ridley. I know it's not going to happen this year. They're probably going to draft Michael Mayer. Watch, just book it. They're going to draft Michael Mayer. Watch. They're going to draft Michael Mayer. But they're trying to surround their young quarterback with weapons. And that's something that I can't say about the New England Patriots and Mac Jones. That's something that I still struggle to say about Justin Fields and the Chicago Bears. So my overall takeaway is good for Trevor Lawrence, good for Jacksonville, not so good for Christian Kirk, and I guess it's okay for Calvin Ridley. I mean, I guess it's fine. I think he slides into that offense, and he's immediately the best receiver on that team. He's better than Christian Kirk. He's better than Zay Jones. Marvin Jones is probably not there, and I think they'll draft the tight end. So I think overall, good move for Jacksonville, and they didn't have to give up much. A conditional 24 second and a 23 fifth, potentially, the ceiling for those picks. I think it was a solid move by Jacksonville. I didn't see it coming, but I'm fine with Calvin Ridley to Jacksonville.
Yeah, I think it was a really savvy move, honestly, because I don't think we'd heard any rumors about where Ridley could go or if he was even on the trade block. We knew that he probably wasn't going back to Atlanta, but I think him going to Jacksonville is notable because he is a guy who's from Florida, right? He's probably not going to Miami, but the next closest place would be Jacksonville, where he's close to home. And, obviously there was concerns about his personal life and other things going on there and other reasons why he was away from football. But it was, I think, beyond just playing in Atlanta, the situation around there. And then on top of that, Ray, we never talked about this, but even though it was unlikely, there was always the possibility that he returned to Atlanta with CJ Stroud and all these guys. Mm-hmm. And they have Drake London, Kyle Pitts, and Calvin Ridley. Great receiving core, but 3 talented players that we draft high in fantasy. All of them are going to take away from each other in some right? So I think now going to Jacksonville, he can be the alpha. People can say he's washed, whatever. He will be 28 going into next season, turning 29, a little bit older. It's
not washed.
No. I'm just saying that's not washed, but he is older, right? But I think the bigger thing for me is I think I would be willing to trade Calvin Ridley when he comes back. not seeing, just waiting for the hype to build up. He's going to be a 150 target receiver. The same thing we're talking about with Christian Kirk. If you could trade him away for someone who's worth more on your roster, potentially even now, I think that's a move I'd be willing to make, because I don't know what he's going to be on Jacksonville. I think he'll be good. But to your point about Trevor Lawrence, it's funny the way you formed that argument, because it was the same thing we said about Zach Wilson. Well, at least they're bringing people around him.
They do.
Well, at least they're doing their best to bring it. And we say, what do we say? It's on Zach Wilson to succeed or fail.
100%.
So
100%.
in some ways, it will be on Trevor Lawrence to succeed 100%. Or fail. And we'll see what happens with Trevor Lawrence. But I think that is the step in the right direction to bring in a Calvin Ridley, who we all have seen is extremely talented. And it's just the good thing for them is they didn't have to pay a lot to get him, but they will have to likely extend him. So that is worth noting, right? I believe he's under contract for next season.
Yeah.
But beyond that, he will not be under contract.
And I think good thing for Drake London and Kyle Pitts as well, because I know a lot of people were like, if Ridley comes back, how does that fit with London and Pitts? I think it's good for them. What's not good for them is Marcus Mariota, but that's another topic for another day. What else?
Okay, so two old friends made a deal yesterday for a running back, and the Miami Dolphins acquired Jeff Wilson Jr. This was after trading away Chase Edmonds. We'll get into that trade a little bit later. But how do you feel about Mike McDaniel just tapping Shanny on the shoulder and be like, hey, Shanny, you got Christian McCaffrey. How do you feel about giving me our old boy Jeff Wilson so I can pair him with Raheem Mostert? We just bring back the old running back and bring it to Miami.
Change his number now. That's the real question. Does CMC go to 22? Can he do that? Can they change?
I don't think so. He's probably printed so many 23s. The NFL 23s. I don't think the NFL would let him, because remember, they charge for that shit. They're like, oh yeah, you want to change your number
But
mid-season.
they could say if you want to do an exchange program, and then I don't know. I just want to see CMC back in the 22. Here's the thing. At this point right now, Jay, offensively, I question nothing that Mike McDaniels does. Nothing. Whatever he touches so far has been gold. So Jeff Wilson there. Is something wrong with Raheem Mostert? Did he get injured? Is he banged? I mean, he's always injured.
I think it's when you think about it from their standpoint, you have Raheem Mostert, Chase Edmonds. They traded away Raheem Mostert to get Bradley Chubb, and the Denver Broncos needed another running back. So you bring in Jeff Wilson. And I think it was a smart trade by them, honestly. You bring in Jeff Wilson, two running backs that know your system, have worked in tandem in the past, and can fill these roles in the ways that you need them to. Chase Edmonds clearly did not fit that system. That's why he didn't play. And I think that's the main reason why you bring in someone like Jeff Wilson after he was basically relegated to the bench because the 49ers traded for him.
Yeah, I think it's a good move. Jeff Wilson, we'll see how he's used in this offense. I'm not sure Chase Edmonds is. I traded for him in the offseason. I bought in. They brought him in. He's awful. He doesn't get the ball. Mostert's fast, and he's been productive. I think it's a good deal for both sides, man. I thought it was a good deal for both sides. Jeff Wilson wasn't going to play behind Christian McCaffrey, and this is good for Tyrion Davis-Price to be the primary backup behind Christian McCaffrey. He's been active. I think he got a couple of carries. So overall, is this a big fantasy game-changing move? No. Jeff Wilson is a decent best ball dart, complimentary back. We'll see how they deploy him. But my big thing is anything that Mike McDaniels does, I'm not going to question it at this point because it's been gold and he's printing money. So I'm all in. Good move for Miami. I liked it, man. A lot of these little trades, they're not big blockbusters. You're not seeing massive names get traded, but I think these are savvy little moves. And a player like Jeff Wilson, with Raheem Mostert's injury history and his past with being banged up, it could be a guy that later down the season, we're only 8 weeks into the season, right? This is week 9 coming up. Yep. So a lot of football left to be played. And he's the type of cat that if something happens to Mostert, he could be a must-start option the deeper we get into the NFL season. So I like it. Some insurance for Miami. And, that he wasn't going to be used in San Francisco. So another running back on the market that can be usable. I liked it. I thought it was solid, man.
Yeah, so now with the Dolphins going officially all in, right? They also traded for Bradley Chubb. They also got a 2025 fifth-round draft pick on top of that, trading away Chase Edmonds. And then they also traded away their 2023 first-round draft pick. So the Denver Broncos now have another first-round draft pick, which is San Francisco's, right, first-round draft pick. And they also got a fourth-round draft pick in 2024. What do you think about this deal bringing in Bradley Chubb, and do you care that Chase Edmonds is now on the Denver Broncos?
Chase Edmonds is on the Broncos?
Yeah, he got traded to the Broncos.
I didn't even know, like, legitimately. Chase.
So what actually happened first was they traded for Bradley Chubb.
Yes, they traded for Chubb.
So Bradley Chubb was traded to Miami for the first round pick essentially, and Chase Edmonds because they wanted the RB depth, right? And then the Niners went, okay, Shanny, come on, give me Jeff Wilson. And they just traded a fifth for him, brought Jeff Wilson back. So now Chase Edmonds is actually on Denver. And then you have Bradley Chubb now in Miami. And apparently they're also working on an extension for Bradley Chubb. So he's going to be in Miami probably for the long term.
That's how irrelevant he's been. I completely missed that Edmonds is with Denver now. So is that good for Denver? Is Edmonds good for Denver?
I don't know. Genuinely, Ray, is he better than Latavius Murray? I don't think so. You could say, he was on the roster start of the season, but he's not. And he's probably not better than Melvin Gordon. So maybe he's better in the receiving game, but Melvin Gordon's fine in the receiving game. Latavius Murray can catch passes. Like, they're just getting a little bit of depth because Mike Boone got hurt.
Yeah.
So, they didn't really have an RB3. They're kind of just working with those.
Don't go out and buy Chase Edmonds. Like, don't do anything.
He's not going to be the guy.
Yeah.
Like, he gets traded left and right. He was like the third string running back on Miami. The bigger thing is Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips anchoring the edge on that defensive line is going to be really, really good for Miami.
And don't they play? God bless Mac Jones, man. He's got to face Buffalo twice, Miami's defense twice, and the Jets twice per year.
Yeah.
Woof. Tough. That Broncos backfield, Leo, big fade. No part of it. No part of it. The Bradley Chubb deal. Listen, this hurts Denver's defense for sure. He's a fantastic outside linebacker. Can stop the run, can get after the pass when he's healthy. This helps Miami. Like you said, Jalen Phillips on one side. You got Javon Holland in the secondary along with Xavier Howard. They got a young rookie from Texas A&M Commerce that's playing well on the back end. This is a good deal for Miami. And I saw a tweet this morning that the Laramie Tunsil video where the trade was something with Laramie Tunsil turned Miami, like that trade to Houston, turned into Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle.
No, it's Trey Lance. Trey Lance.
Yes. The Trey Lance turned into. Well, it all stemmed from the Tunsil trade initially, right?
Oh, okay.
Like initially, that trade ended up netting Miami Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Bradley Chubb. Like when all the pieces cleared, that's what that ended up turning into for Miami. So Miami out here playing chess. Miami's out here playing chess. And Troy just said it, the combination of both trades. Yes, Tunsil popped it off. Then it was Trey Lance. And I think the bigger takeaway, again, a lot of people had mocked a running back to Miami in the first round of the 2023 NFL draft. You saw a lot of Bijan Robinson to Miami. They have no first-round pick now. So they're probably going to have to get a day 2 running back, which Bijan probably not there in day 2, but some running back candidates that could be there that are right at the top of the board. Maybe Blake Corum, maybe a player like Zach Charbonnet or Zach Evans or Tank Bigsby. You got a lot of guys that could potentially slot into that running back room because I do think they will get a running back at some point in the draft next year. So that's a big one. All right, let's keep it going. Who else we talking about?
Let's talk about the Chicago Bears trading a second-round draft pick for Chase Claypool. So the Pittsburgh Steelers, one of the best-run organizations in all of football as far as I'm concerned, drafted Chase Claypool in the second round 3 years ago, and 3 years later, they trade him to the sorry Bears for that same second-round draft pick. So they basically got his services for 3 years for free. But how do you feel about Chase Claypool now being with Justin Fields on the Chicago Bears? I think he's going to play outside, too, which concerns me a little bit. I like him better in the slot.
Man, at least they're trying. It's better than Byron Pringle, N'Keal Harry, Equinemius St. Brown, Dante
and
Pettis.
passing on George Pickens twice in the second round in the draft.
It's better than that. That's all I could really say, Jay. How do you feel about, like, honestly, this is one where Justin Fields has no problem pushing the ball downfield, and we know Chase Claypool is an athletic freak, right? He can get downfield. He makes some awesome grabs. I don't know how. He said he's a top 3 wide receiver in the league. Let's prove it, right?
I almost forgot about that.
This is, at least they're trying. I think they're trying. And they're going to have to pay him, too. You know this, right? They're going to have to pay Chase Claypool. That's the shitty part.
When you pay the second, you're like, yeah, they're paying him. What are they paying him? I don't know. Probably like 10 million, probably more than 10 million a year, which is scary. I think the bigger thing, Ray, and the reason why I kind of like the fit, one thing you mentioned, best receiver realistically outside of Darnell Mooney that they have. You've seen Justin Fields throw a lot of jump balls, a lot. You've seen Equanimeous St. Brown, N'Keal Harry's had a couple. He likes to throw those deep balls. And while I'm not the biggest Chase Claypool fan, you're not spreading down the field. He's okay at the catch point. I thought he was good out of college, and then in the NFL, he hasn't really shown it as much. So I think it is an upgrade for what they do in that offense, right? So the bigger thing here is that hopefully maybe this gives them some confidence to throw the ball more with Justin Fields, gives Justin Fields another player to throw the ball to, while chemistry will probably be an issue early on. He is a guy that is fast as hell. I'll give him that credit, and can get deep to where Justin Fields probably won't overthrow him. It's just, can he get the ball downfield, find the timing, all those things. And then as well, he is actually pretty good at running some of those crossing routes on top of that, right? So if Darnell Mooney's kind of going over the top, he can be that intermediate guy, get some yak, and to do some of that short area quickness stuff as well. So I hope they can find and utilize him well, because he is a pretty talented player. How good he can be in the league, I don't know, but they need playmakers, and I think they brought one in. That's fine. It's just a second-round draft pick. Like, come on. They didn't even want on their roster next season. You're trading a second-round draft pick for him is crazy.
Yeah, that was wild to me. Was it a 23 second that they traded away? Like
second this season, and he was drafted for a second rounder. He's producing as the third wide receiver on the team. We knew on draft day Claypool was gone. They weren't bringing him back, and the Bears are like, we'll give you a second. Like, what are you doing? You shouldn't be that desperate for a wide receiver, in my opinion.
I think what this does is, I'm just following the mocks and the trends of the mock drafts. You saw a lot of mocks with Chicago with the top 10 pick taking a wide receiver, a Jackson Smith-Njigba, a Jordan Addison. I keep seeing them drafting a wide receiver high. I don't think they're doing that now, which you can argue if that's good or bad. I don't think they're taking a wide receiver with the top 15 pick because they're going to have to pay Claypool $20+ million. I mean, he's going to get Christian Kirk.
That much money.
Christian Kirk got it. What's Christian Kirk getting paid per year?
Yeah. Well, they got to pay Darnell Mooney too.
He's going to get Kirk money at least. Like you just gave up. You're going to pay him. And it's going to take them out of the market for a wide receiver in the second. They don't have a second. I don't know, man. At least they're trying, but I don't know. For fantasy, how do you feel about it? Like, realistically, how do you feel?
I genuinely do think that it's probably a lateral move for Claypool for fantasy, but I think there's a lot of upside because you got to think about it. The volume is going to go down, right? Like, they're not going to be throwing the ball 40 times a game like the Pittsburgh Steelers do.
They're never going to throw the ball 40 times a game.
Even though it's spread out more in Pittsburgh, is he going to get enough volume to where he's just as good? We'll see. People are saying that the Packers offered a second. Of course they did, and they didn't get it, right? So the Bears said, fuck you guys. We're going to take Chase Claypool and overpay for a receiver.
Imagine
really
almost being paired with Rodgers, and then you're like, we're going to send you with Justin Fields instead. I mean, I don't know, man. And okay, the Bears still have a Baltimore second rounder from the Roquan trade. So they got a second rounder. They did trade away Roquan Smith, which he is one of the best middle linebackers in the league. He went to Baltimore. I think that was a great move for Baltimore to get Roquan Smith to pair with Patrick Queen in the middle. I think this is a fantastic trade. But I do think ultimately this has to be a positive step in the right direction for Justin Fields. How big of a step that is? Probably about as far as I can walk now with a ruptured Achilles healing. That's probably about as big as the step. All right, what else we got?
I want to talk about your boy, TJ Hawkinson. He's got a new home.
The fraudulent
one. He's got a new home.
TJ Hawkinson.
Traded in division. Sacrilegious.
Yeah.
By the Detroit Lions. Trading TJ Hawkinson in division. TJ Hawkinson, a 2023 fourth round draft pick and a 2020 conditional fourth round draft pick were traded to Minnesota for a 2023 third and a 2023 second and 2024.
Matthew, why would I change? Why would I not call him the fraudulent one because he gets traded? If anything, this makes him even more fraudulent because they said we don't even care the fact that we got to face you twice a year. We're going to get rid of you and roll with Brock Wright and James Mitchell. Yeah, he's still the fraudulent one. A fraudulent top 5 dynasty tight end that I'd be selling every chance that I can get. What does this mean for him? I think this is great for Kirk Cousins. This is a fantastic move for Cousins because as much as I call him the fraudulent one, he's still a good NFL tight end. I'm just carrying the bit forward as far as people saying that he's the next George Kittle, top 3, top 5 dynasty tight end. Bullshit. He's not. I'd take Brock Bowers over TJ Hockenson right now, and he's not even eligible until 2024. So yes, he's a fraudulent top 5 tight end, but he's still a good NFL asset. And I think this was a good move from Minnesota. Adam Thielen, KJ Osborne, they're fine, but they needed another body in order to pull some coverage away from Justin Jefferson. This is, in my opinion, this is great for Kirk Cousins, man, who, if you look at the QB landscape in the NFL right now, Jay, you're in a dynasty startup right now. You want no part of Aaron Rodgers. You want no part of Tom Brady. You want no part of Carson Wentz. You want no part of Jared Goff. You probably don't want Derek Carr. You're a little iffy on Lance Fields,
Russell Wilson,
Trevor
Lawrence.
And the guy that's always right there, just finishing as a top 12 quarterback every year, old man Kirk. Captain Kirk just continues to get it done at 34 years old. And playing Dynasty in a 2 to 3 year window, Jay, I'd probably take Captain Kirk over a lot of these other quarterbacks, man. I don't give a shit about what Fields could become 15 years from now. I'm looking 2 to 3 years. Can I rely on Captain Kirk, TJ Hockenson, Justin Jefferson, and Dalvin Cook, a.k.a. Paul Pierce of the NFL? And I say yes, man. This is a great move for Minnesota. I think it's an awesome team move. What happens with Hawkinson, shit, they didn't use the tight end before he got there. So I don't think he's just going to be peppered with targets. They never used Irv Smith. Very, very sparingly they used Irv Smith.
Use him a little bit.
A little bit. But I think this is a bigger move for Kirk Cousins and Dalvin Cook because TJ Hawkinson's a very good blocker, so he can clear some more runway for Dalvin Cook. That's where I'm at with the deal.
Yeah, so Ray, it is worth noting that Irv Smith does have a high ankle sprain. He's expected to miss 8 to 10 weeks. So that's one of the bigger factors here as to why they traded for TJ Hockenson. But I think what's funny about the other end of this trade is that the Detroit Lions actually picked up TJ Hawkinson's 5th-year option this year just to trade him away to the Minnesota Vikings. So after this season, he has a $9 million cap hit that they will have to take on. But Kirk Cousins will be there for this season and next season. He's still under contract. Dead cap of $48 million, though. My goodness, Kirk Cousins just getting paid to do nothing.
Oh, man, Kirk.
They're 6-1, right? So they're doing pretty good. 6-1, 7, 6-1.
6-1, and no one's talking about them. 6-1, the quietest 6-1 team in the NFL, and nobody's talking about Minnesota. Nobody. Shout out to Minnesota, man. Shout out to Minnesota.
They're playing well. But yeah, to your point, Hockenson, I think, is a more dynamic tight end than Irv Smith ever was. I think you talk about TJ Hockenson being the fraudulent tight end. In my opinion, that is Irv Smith. Irv Smith has been the most fraudulent tight end from the moment he ever got to Alabama. He's like 6'2", 230, and this guy is a tight end? No. Like he's never
not that
been
small, is he? How big is Irv
Smith?
He's
6'2", and he is a tight end. No, he is not a tight end. Ever since he's been in Alabama, I'm like, this dude is not a tight end. He's not even tall enough to play wide receiver. Heaven forbid play tight end in the NFL. Again, he's fine. He can't really block that well. He can catch passes.
Smith is pretty fraudulent.
He is tight end. Fraudulent. He's not. Now they have a real tight end that say what you want about his abilities and his time in Detroit. But the fallout, and Ray, I don't think anyone's really mentioned this that much. Could this potentially mean that Jameson Williams is back sooner rather than later?
100%.
Right? Because now you're getting a weapon off the roster. Yes, you got some draft pick compensation back. I'm seeing Brown people saying it's an upgrade. I don't really think so. I think his role was already solidified in the offense.
His role, agreed.
But DJ Shark, I think, is still out right on IR, but Jameson Williams potentially coming back. Could be really good news for Jared Goff and that offense. Again, they're going nowhere this season.
They're going nowhere.
It would be great to see them all kind of together to see what they could build on for next season.
They're going nowhere. They're gonna draft Jaheim Bell in the 2nd round next year with the new head coach because Dan Campbell probably won't be there. But I think it's a great move for Minnesota, and I do think it signals that J-Mo is closer to returning than being away. What else we got? What other trades that we had?
The other big one that you didn't really talk. So that was a lot for the offense. There wasn't really anything else offensively that there's worth talking about. Your boy, like you mentioned, Roquan Smith traded for AJ Klein, and then they got a 2nd and 5th in return. Question for you though: do you think this could mean that Patrick Queen doesn't come back to Baltimore? He's on his 3rd year right now, so he'll be expiring after next season. And obviously, if they're trading this much away for Chubb for Roquan Smith, they're probably going to re-sign him. Like you mentioned, though, that linebacking core for a couple of years is going to be deadly, and hopefully it can propel Baltimore to higher things. But it's also funny because I saw a meme on Twitter, and it was a picture of Roquan Smith in front of Lamar Jackson, and it's them both negotiating their contracts with Baltimore, right? Because Roquan Smith is going to protect Lamar Jackson from the Baltimore faithful when they negotiate their contracts. But it's just, I think it's great for the team. It doesn't really mean much for fantasy, though. It just hopefully makes that defense a little bit better than it's been. But the bigger issue is the secondary, not the linebacking core.
And the other fantasy relevant trades have already happened. Christian McCaffrey going to the 49ers. Yeah. We see how that's played out. Also, Kadarius Toney. I want to revisit the Kadarius Toney trade as Kansas City had a bye. And did you see the quote from the GM of the Giants?
No.
That they were talking about Toney's injury, and they said that he was scheduled to practice on Thursday before they traded him. So
of course he was.
Of course he's healthy. Kadarius Toney, full allotment of snaps come Sunday. He'll just be out there every play. Just what do you think about Toney now? Like, what do you think about Toney? Have you come around to it a little bit more? Do you think they brought him in to be a punt returner, or do you think he can actually be a piece of this Kansas City offense?
I think the question is can he be a piece of the Kansas City offense for the fantasy season, right? He seems like a guy that's more of a playoff move. Not a lot of tape on him. You can work him into the offense slowly. They're going to make the playoffs. So that's the big thing for me is I think that Toney could be a difference maker down the stretch late in the season and into the playoffs. For the fantasy season, how often can you start him? I don't really think you can very often, right? We've already seen Juju's had back-to-back great games for Kansas City. Obviously, Travis Kelce's a monster. MVS is having better games and performances on top of performances. The big guy I want to see, Ray, actually, is Isaiah Pacheco. They announced him a starter before the bye week. Then he kind of played a little bit, not a lot. Had the 2 weeks. So now how is he going to perform? And Nathan mentioned in the chat, Sky Moore is dust. Not necessarily dust, but going to be more difficult to see him get on the field when he's probably not going to be returning punts because he drops them all the time. And they brought in Kadarius Toney for a reason. So I think that they will be trying to utilize him as well. Whether he can take Sky Moore's role, probably. And like I mentioned last time we talked about, what role does he have is one thing, but I think, like I talked about, I think that some of the old packages they had for Tyreek Hill is a role that Kadarius Toney can fill. It's not the long game, but the short area quickness, the screens, those type of quick passes. I think that's a role he can fill and bring back some old plays they used to run with a lot of effectiveness in Kansas City.
They said they wanted to get Pacheco more touches, so we'll see what happens coming out of the bye. I mean, it's obvious. Like, we all have eyes. When we watch the game, it's like that guy should probably get the ball a little bit more. He looks a little better than everybody else out there. But ultimately, we had some – normally the NFL trade deadline is very uneventful, but we had some activity. And I think there are some deeper little plays that could matter in the long run. Although maybe not super impactful, I think there's some things that happened at the trade deadline that towards the fantasy playoffs could help us out, Jay. So there we go. Good stuff going through all those trades. And Jay, I was sitting back and I was listening to radio the other day, and I was like, you know what, Jay? We need to do a fantasy therapy session with some of our patrons because I know times are rough out here. So if you should join the community, it's the first of the month, so all of y'all got paid. You all have money. $7 a month. Come get in the Discord, patreon.com/allgas. We were supposed to talk about my updated rankings today, but we don't have enough time to talk about the updated rankings. We'll do that sometime next week, talk about some shifts and some changes. But I know the people out there are just confused. They're hurt. They're broken, Jay. So I said, tell me, give us something. We'll talk about it on the show, and we'll talk through this little fantasy therapy session. So let's pull up some therapy music, man. Let's get some music going right now, Jay. Got a little elevator music. And we're going to pull up a dilemma that one of our patrons are in, and we're going to talk through this dilemma, all right? Who do we have? We've got our boy Springer, and he's talking about wide receiver valuations. He said, we were high on Cortland Sutton when Russell Wilson was traded, and now he looks like ass. We were high on Elijah Moore, even after Garrett Wilson got drafted, and now he's stuck in purgatory. Ray GQ, help me out, sir. What do we need to really consider for off-season wide receiver evaluations, Jay? And you don't know what we were going to pull out, and you're dancing, and I don't think you're listening, so let's get to it. Again, we were high on Sutton. We were high on Elijah Moore. All these things happen, trades, new quarterbacks. He's asking, what do we got to consider when we're evaluating wide receivers, Jay? I think this is a really good question. And
two things.
Go ahead.
Okay. All right.
Well,
two things for me.
Go ahead.
At least. Talent and certainty. Those are two things that neither of those players had. You need to have both. You need to have talent.
Well, I don't think there's any such thing as certainty. I don't think here's something I've learned over this past week. Two things. One should be obvious, that there is no certainty. There is no sure thing. So as much as you go back to the beginning of this offseason, nobody, not one single person, no fantasy analyst, no NFL analyst predicted Russell Wilson being this bad. Nobody.
Yeah.
Nobody said this was going to happen. This was a monumental upgrade for all the weapons in Denver. So there is no such thing as certainty. And two, Jay, one thing that is really struck me that I heard last week or a couple of weeks ago is everybody talks about being objective, and I don't think there is a such thing as objectivity. No matter what situation you go into in life, you've got a little bit of bias going into that. I don't care who you are or what you're talking about. That doesn't mean that it prevents you from trying to be as objective as possible, but I don't think there's any such thing as 100% I'm going to be completely objective in this situation, because you have bias walking into it. But in the case of players like Courtland Sutton and Elijah Moore, I think they're two different situations, man. The Jets told us, Jay, from day one that they wanted another receiver. They told us that. They tried to get Tyreek Hill. They spent a top 10 pick on Garrett Wilson. So why is it that in that moment, all of us kept saying, nah, Elijah's the guy, Elijah's the guy, Elijah's the guy? I think the bigger takeaway in this is, I don't know how many leagues you play in, but you got to diversify. I had some Elijah Moore, and I also had some Garrett Wilson to hedge my bet, because I truly did not know. So I don't know. I think these are two completely different situations. The Courtland Sutton, Russell Wilson thing, nobody saw that coming. I mean, because the whole offseason, it was Courtland Sutton's going to be the DK Metcalf, Jerry Jeudy's going to be the Tyler Lockett. So don't beat yourself up too much over this. Everybody whiffed on this one. And to be honest, Jay, I don't even think it's over for Sutton and Jeudy. No, right? Russell Wilson's not going anywhere.
Them either way.
Russell Wilson's not going anywhere. Courtland Sutton got paid. He's not going anywhere. So while things look bleak today, let's not overreact and be like Courtland Sutton's dead. Russell Wilson is dead. They're not playing good football at all right now. Nobody on the Denver Broncos offense outside of Jerry Jeudy and Greg Dulcich here and there are playing well. So don't overreact and panic too much. But in situations like Elijah Moore, maybe, just maybe, we should be a little more cognizant of what's going on. Like, just hypothetically, Jay, if the Dallas Cowboys drafted Quentin Johnston in the first round next year, right? Like, I'm not fading CeeDee Lamb, but I'm looking at that like, yo, he's probably going to pull some of those targets away from Lamb. They went out and got him for a reason. If they go out there and trade for whomever it is. So I think that's the big lesson, right? Is diversify. Diversify. Have a little Sutton. Have a little Jerry Jeudy. And then let's not ignore obvious red flags, Jay. Brian Robinson, right? Remember Brian Robinson when he got drafted? And we could talk about how the Washington situation has played out now, and it looks like Antonio Gibson is the better option. But damn, they sure tried to give Brian Robinson that workload, right? The team kept telling us. So let's not ignore what the teams are telling us. So hopefully that helps you out a little bit, Springer. What else you got to add, man?
So the reason why I said certainty is because you look at these situations, you say, were we certain that Zach Wilson was good? Actually, all signs were pointing to Zach Wilson not being very good, right? You have a new head coach and new quarterback in this new system. Yeah, he's coming from, Green Bay, successful offense, all these things, but I think the bigger thing for me is that we need to just realize that just because you bring in a new play caller and a new quarterback doesn't mean you're going to have success right away, right? And just because we project players to get better doesn't mean they're going to be better. And that's the only reason why I say certainty, because there are situations where quarterback play is consistent, weapons are consistent, target shares are consistent. Playing with a player like Mahomes, like Josh Allen, even Jalen Hurts to some degree, we kind of knew how it was going to shake out, and it worked the opposite direction, right? Jalen Hurts wasn't showing a lot, but things really took off for him. Now he's, a top 5 fantasy quarterback. So you have to project. And I think that's where you can be upset with yourself, beat yourself down, but you have to project something. You can't just assume things are going to stay the same. You have to call your shot, make your trades. And like you mentioned, diversifying is key, because that way, when you do call your shot, some are going to be right, some are going to be wrong. Players are going to get injured. All these things are going to happen. But I think the bigger thing is like looking at these quarterbacks, and you really want players that have good quarterback play, right? You look at the Tua, who's been super efficient, even though he has great weapons. Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, even Justin Herbert, who's been pretty bad, can support top wide receivers. And I think the bigger thing for me is like, these guys are worth paying for. The top quarterbacks are worth paying for. The top wide receivers with great target shares are worth paying for, right? And this, I think, is the mistake that some people make, is that sometimes you go chasing the supreme ceiling of an Elijah Moore. If everything hits, if Zach Wilson hits and Elijah Moore hits and Garrett Wilson isn't heavily involved in the offense, instead of just getting a guy that you know is going to produce, right?
All right. I got one more. We were only going to do one, but I really wanted to talk about this one because a lot of people in the Discord brought this up. And this is from Brian Newman 13. What I learned this year is don't fall in love with your players/prospects. JT was my favorite running back ever and helped me win a championship last year. I could have easily flipped him for 3+ first and teared down to a guy like Eckler and had way more capital. Being in love with the player sometimes hurts you in the long run. Don't always chase youth and dynasty. Saw at the end of last offseason, people were trying to get rid of guys like Stephon Diggs, Devontae Adams, and Tyreek Hill, which made 0 sense given their NFL team's investment in them. People will rarely trade superstar for picks hoping to get half the production. This is something I've learned, Jay, this season, is not being in love with the player, not being in love with the prospect, trying to be more player agnostic and looking at situations and trying to capitalize on value. And I think Jonathan Taylor, it's an easy example to point to this year because he's struggling, right? Had he come out and rush for 100 yards in week 1 and he's just smashing all season, I think the sentiment would be a little bit different, but the point still remains, in my opinion. I think so many times in Dynasty, we hope, and I always say, what do I say about hope? What do I say about hope? Hope is the killer
of all dynasty teams.
Of all dynasty teams. Hope is the killer of all dynasty teams. We hope. I hope he can do it. I hope he can become this. Hope, 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 hope. These are prospects, man. I don't care how rock solid the profile looks. It's easy to point to Trent Richardson today, but in 2009 or whenever he declared, I remember the run versus Ole Miss where he's on the sideline and he's juking out the entire team and people thought he was going to be a monster for fantasy football. I remember that. I remember when Isaiah Crowell was quote unquote better than Nick Chubb. I remember this. Oh, he's starting over Nick Chubb. We fall in love with player names so much and it hamstrings us in Dynasty. Jay, I will trade any damn player that I have. Any of them. Taylor, Christian McCaffrey, Drake London, it doesn't matter. Outside of the quarterback, outside of like the Josh Allen, I probably ain't moving them. But I'll trade any player. And I think so many times in Dynasty, people hold on to the name or their sentiment and the belief of the player. You know you can always acquire that guy back. And if you play in multiple leagues, it's okay not to have Drake London in every single league that you play in. In fact, it's almost counterintuitive to do that. You want to diversify. You want to hedge. And I know somebody said, what if I'm only in a couple of leagues? Well, that changes the equation to a certain degree. But I think this is one that a lot of Dynasty gamers are wrestling with this year, is being in love with the player and not capitalizing on the value that the player that you love presents. And you got to get out of that mind frame. You have to. Once you reach peak value, you got to go, man. Like you got to go. And I get it that prospects and it's all a risk, right? But you're just trying to hedge bets. You're trying to paint the most complete picture possible with the colors that you have. And I think so many times just hanging on to the name is a bad strategy in Dynasty, Jay.
So I do agree with you in a lot of ways. I think it's easy for us to come up here and say, oh yeah, sell Jonathan Taylor when he's RB1, right? Because we play in a lot of leagues and it's easy for us to just move one Jonathan Taylor share. I think the bigger thing is like, if you're going to be convicted on a player and choose to hold them on your roster, just understand the risks that come with that, right? Understand that no running back ever repeats as RB, like almost ever. And especially when it comes to Dynasty, where now on KTC, Kenneth Walker is RB1. Let's not even bother getting into that right now. But the bigger thing, like you mentioned, right, it is a trap to hold on to players for the long term, and values will go up and down. And I think this kind of comes back to the conversation we had about value in terms of wide receivers, right? Alphas. And when we get into it, your BAM tier, by any means necessary tier that you have in our Dynasty rankings at Patreon. So the big thing is that you need to understand the values will go up and down. And with a player like JT, they look up and down. RBs are very fickle, and I think that's where it's an extreme case. They get super high, and then anything happens, and they go down like immediately.
Well, the second part of this, though, Jay, is a lot of people do chase youth. And I saw people bailing on Tyreek Hill, bailing on Stephon Diggs, bailing on Devontae Adams. And, you know, you look at that now, and I know Devontae's not playing well, but selling Tyreek Hill for a Jahan Dotson, for a random 23 first-round pick, those aren't good strategies, man. And I know it's, again, it's easy to say that now, but some guys are elite, and I think sometimes we galaxy brain shit. Don't overthink it, man. Stephon Diggs is going to be a baller until he's done playing. Tyreek Hill, until the moment he says, I don't want to play wide receiver anymore, he's going to be good. He's in an offense that's catered to him. He's getting like 13 targets a game. It's Tyreek Hill. Like, I'm not selling him for a random chance at Jordan Addison or Quentin Johnston. Get the fuck out of here, man. Like, I'm not trading Diggs for any of that. I think we galaxy brain stuff so much when at the end of the day, man, at the end of the day, think about all that preseason hype for all these rookies. Remember how awful the 2022 class was? Yet we reached the point in the offseason where everybody wanted these guys. Everybody wanted these guys. When it's time to strap on the pads, these coaches are going to throw out players that they trust, players that are proven. Until you prove it, you're not the guy. Until London proves it, he's not the guy. Until Kenneth Walker was able to prove it, he's not the guy. Breece Hall proved it, he became the guy. So I'm not moving off of the Diggs and the Hills. Like, I'm not doing it. I'm playing in a 2 to 3 year window, man. And I can always go back and get these rookies. And just remember that as we enter into a quote unquote good draft class for 2023. Watch the hype around these cats, man. Watch the hype once OTAs and minicamp starts around all these rookies in a class that we objectively cannot view side by side with. We already are going into this saying that these rookies are way better than 2022 rookies. And watch how that's going to influence Tyreek's 29, Stephon Diggs is 30, Cooper Kupp is 30. I don't want any of these guys anymore. And you know what's going to happen, Jay? They're going to turn around next NFL season and smash. Yeah. They're just going to keep doing it. So, there we go. All right. There it is.
It's good. It's good. Ray preaching on the wide receivers. I thought it was my job. And here you are. Wide receivers. AJ Brown, wide receiver 1. Let's go.
Let's go. All right, Jay, anything you want to say to people before we get out of here?
No, man. Go get yourself some coffee. Michelle Dodo. Go to the website. It's in the link in the description. Please, I'm telling you, man, it's so good. I drink probably 3 cups a day. I got to get some more, actually. But it's all right. It's all right. Ray, you killed it, man. People talking about I'm patiently waiting to interrupt. No, I'm just listening, taking in the information.
You can interrupt. Wait, you said Kenneth Walker? Kenneth Walker what?
Running back 1 on KTC. Our boy Jordan Backus threw that in the chat yesterday. Yeah, insane. RB1. Jonathan Taylor's like RB2 now, I think.
What do you think about that?
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, man. Come on. Like, no.
We were supposed to get out of here, and then you said that, and you've completely. I
think Kenneth Walker's great. I don't think he's RB1 though.
On KTC?
RB1. Yeah, RB1. 101. I think like 9th overall or something like that. Maybe 10th overall. You still got like AJ Brown and Chase Jefferson, all those guys ahead of him. But yeah, RB1. Kenneth Walker. There's no clear RB1 in Dynasty. Doesn't exist.
Who's 2?
No longer.
Who's 2?
JT.
ETN?
No, JT.
JT's 2. Who's 3? Just curious. CMC,
I don't know. I didn't look that
Saquon?
far. Hold on, let me see.
Yeah, man.
How it goes, man.
Yeah, man.
That's how it goes.
God, I did not know that. You've broken news to me with Chase Edmonds, and you've broken news with me with
Saquon Barkley is
Saquon
RB3.
is RB what?
3, and then Christian McCaffrey RB4. Then Breece Hall RB5.
Whew, Jay.
Yikes.
All right, people. Man, patreon.com/allgas. Get in the group. More fantasy therapy sessions coming soon. We got Friday's show. I don't think we'll do the rankings on Friday. We got to talk games. We got to do all of that.
Yeah.
And then we'll get into that next week at some point in time.
Not so obvious starts of the week, baby.
Yeah, not so obvious starts of the week. We got week 9 buys. No Giants. They're off the schedule. Lots of buys this week. Yeah, so we're gonna have to weather the storm, but we do get some good players back. Thursday night football. We got the Eagles and the Texans. Jay, you ready for it?
Eagles are gonna win by 30. But yeah, week 9 buys: Browns, Cowboys, Broncos, 49ers, Steelers, and Giants. Big week of buys this week.
All right, man. We're out of this thing. Y'all be here. We'll see y'all on Friday. We out. Peace. Thank y'all for watching the Wake Up Show with myself and Jay Rich. If you finished the show and you're still hanging around and have yet to hit the thumbs up button or subscribe to the channel, do that right now and turn them alerts on while you're at it. If you want more exclusive access to me, Jay Rich, the entire Destination Devy team, patreon.com/allgas gives you that access. Make sure you subscribe to the newsletter for free 99 content. And if you want to get in on that action, use the promo code WAKEUP over on PrizePicks for a 100% deposit match up to $100 for first-time users, and a brand new show dropping on the Mojo YouTube channel. Myself and Jay Rich will be talking about these players and their value from a stock market perspective every single week this fall over on Mojo. It's all gas all the time. Love y'all. I'm out of this thing. Peace.